what this place has in store for F1 tonight. Well, tonight we go racing around the bright lights of Las Vegas. 3.8 miles under the Nevada night sky and thousands of neon lights. There are landmarks everywhere you look, punctuating the 17 corners and 2 DRS zones. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Piastri, Fernando Alonso and Albon, Lawson, Behrman, Russell and Yuki Tsunoda, Gasly, Stroll, Gabriel Bortoleto and Hadjar, Antonelli, Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon, Colapinto and Max Verstappen completes the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. And alongside me today is a man who needs no introduction, but I'll try anyway. It's Ant Davidson. Quitting while you're ahead, not spending too much on the slot machines and trying to get some decent sleep. That's my main 3 challenges here in Las Vegas, but what about the drivers?
Yeah, speaking about the on-track challenges, Crofty, enough about you and your challenge over the weekend. This track, you're on Monza downforce, don't forget. So every corner that comes your way, you've got way less grip than you're accustomed to in a Formula 1 car. So you've got to tread carefully, particularly around the higher speed content on the circuit.
All right, let's have a quick radio check, please. Radio check.
Hello, as you can most likely tell based off this stream title and that intro you've just got, it's a last 2 question mark challenge, 100% race here at Las Vegas. I'm driving as Max Verstappen, so that covers all the bases here today. So let's try and work out what the hell I am going to be doing with the strategy. It does look like a 2-stop is somewhat quicker here. So it does seem like that's what we could be playing around with. Maybe do something like that. Or do we see if the medium to hard's quicker in this race? You know what? That is going to be my strategy. I'm going to go for the 2-stop start on mediums, maybe convert to that one, as the 5 lights are now up here in Las Vegas. And we are underway. What can Max Verstappen do? We've already had a fairly good start. Going to squeeze past Colapinto, look to the inside and make a lunge stick where possible alongside with Andrea Kimi Antonelli for P15. Can we even go alongside with Isaac Hadjar? We'll go to the outside through turn 2. Unable to get the move done. A bit of contact there with the Mercedes. But apart from that, we are all safe through the first 2 corners. As you can see, all the cars up ahead trying to find a place to go, as I almost went into the back of Gabriel Bortoleto there, who's starting on the softer compounded tyres. Will continue going wheel to wheel into this heavy braking chicane, going to squeeze the Sauber out as much as possible, as this has been a very good start to say the least so far. P13 after the opening lap. Could still be more, as we've got Stroll and Gasly just up ahead, and Aston Martin and an Alpine. Then that's when we really start kicking into overdrive with those drivers who are quicker. You've got George Russell and Yuki Tsunoda on the outskirts of those points. The Mercedes really don't seem like they're enjoying this track with Antonelli down in P16 so far. I'm not going to use too much battery, knowing that DRS comes into play in a lap's time. So we're going to take it safe as we go through the chicane at the end of the strip, heading up towards turn 1 once again. Lando Norris already has a mighty lead with Hamilton in P2. Then it seems like Oscar Piastri doing quite a bit of hold up as they could be on the mediums. There's Russell making a lunge on Yuki Tsunoda, will tuck into the inside on the exit of turn 1 on Lance Stroll, take a wider line, cut back in, try and open up our exit a bit more. Now it's time where we can use some battery and try and propel by with DRS. However, this DRS train not making our life easy, as there's Stroll and Pierre Gasly going to fight wheel to wheel for a moment. The Mercedes very much not giving up, as I'm going to go for a fairly unorthodox and untraditional move on Lance Stroll there, slam the door shut on the Aston Martin as we now work our way down to the strip. We're currently P12, so it's sitting nice and pretty at the moment, as we're going to settle in behind Gasly, try and get a better exit, which we're unable to do so we'll burn some battery just to stay within that prized 4/10 of a second. We'll get DRS on the Alpine. Whether or not we can overtake the Alpine on this time of asking, we'll find out, as Stroll trying to compete with us. Gasly covers off to the inside. We're going to try and lunge it round the outside, give the Alpine some room, and that is P11 now. We are about to get caught up with all the front runners, and Norris a 36.4 that time round. I'm not expecting anywhere remotely close to that until we're in clean air. It's a 38.1. Tsunoda to the inside of Lawson, bumping Russell through. They're going to squeeze to that inside as a result, but that's Yuki up to 8, I'm up to 10. 2 Red Bulls in the points now as Liam Lawson DRS on Yuki. Yuki even trying to make a move on Alex Albon's stick. To the outside goes the Red Bull as George Russell on the outside there. I'm going to instead try and stick it down the inside against Liam Lawson. We get the job done. That's P9 as there's Yuki Tsunoda alongside Alexander Albon. To the inside goes that Red Bull. They are ahead of the Williams. We're just working ourselves through this field quite nicely in this race. If you're curious for the AI difficulty, it's 107. I haven't actually drove this game in a good few months, if you've seen. It's primarily been commentary on Cryptic Commentates. Do go check that out. Hence why you are getting some commentary of this at the same time. As now Tsunoda to hunt down the Haas, and I am to hunt down the Williams, as Lawson's had a better exit. Albon covers to the inside. I'll go to the outside on these mediums. We'll do just what we did to the Alpine last lap. Get the job done, and now it's Oliver Behrman and Yuki Tsunoda, the 2 cars up ahead. We are dicing our way through this field quite nicely. 12 places in the opening 3 laps. It's a 38.3 that time round, but I think there's still a bit more pace to come. We are now getting closer to that front end of this pack, so the pace should very much be increasing with the laps that go by, when we're finally in that bit of clean air between Charles Leclerc, I believe that is, and Oliver Behrman. Expect our best lap of this race. We're going to push Yuki Tsunoda a bit there and promote ourselves into P7. It's a personal best sector 1 here for us, as we are going to chuck ourselves over the curbs like we've never driven before. As Hamilton 2 seconds up the road from Oliver Behrman. Could we try and get caught up with Piastri, Alonso and Hamilton in the next few laps? If so, it could very much make our lives a bit easier. As now onto the strip we go. Us versus Oliver Behrman seems to be the way it will be. However, Yuki Tsunoda just tucked in behind. I'm almost certain they will want to try and do what the likes of Lawson and Gasly did a lap or so before. Behrman to the inside, Verstappen to the outside. Another easy move there down the strip, as you can see. Hamilton, Piastri and Alonso all going to war with another Alonso now onto the podium places, as Behrman has had a poor exit. I've had a poor exit as well. So Yuki Tsunoda up into P7 now. Can we both hunt down the likes of Hamilton in the Ferrari ahead, and Oscar Piastri and Fernando Alonso, as we now go around turn 2, going onto what would be a DRS zone, clipping the wall on the exit. That's going to be a bit of tyre damage as Yuki Tsunoda promotes themselves back up into P6. I just stayed to the inside, didn't want to fight Yuki, but we will try and fight on the exit. Got a lot more traction on the apex. That's why we can now stick it alongside, squeeze Yuki a bit, just enough that we can both make it through safely. Around the outside there, we're going to cover Yuki off. Very aggressive from us, but that is what we need to do to keep P6 in this race, as we are about to enter the Las Vegas Strip once again. Whether or not we can hunt down Oscar Piastri this time, we will find out, as we are only a tenth of the way through the running here today. As there's Piastri and Alonso just up ahead, swapping places. Won't be surprised if Hamilton gets involved. Yes, he in fact does. Oscar Piastri up to third, and then there's Hamilton and Piastri tussling through that chicane. Hamilton holds on by the looks of it, and that again allows us to close in to the front runners, as this has been a decent lap. Our currently best at 37.2. Hopefully this time round, if we can keep it clean, could be a bit quicker, as we are very close to in fact getting some DRS off the Spaniard ahead. Can we demote that Aston Martin to P5, use a bit of battery on the exit just to try and claw us in a bit more? As Piastri tried overtaking Hamilton there, we'll go very aggressive on that curve, knowing we have to find the time. It's a personal best, sector 1 here for us. Going through the chicane now, very much on the back of Alonso, but so is Behrman and Tsunoda. We very much dragged those two along with us, as we now go through the right, which quickly fades into a left. Could we make a lunge on Alonso? We'll go to the inside of the Aston Martin. That's one place done. We saw the gap and seized the opportunity, as we are expected to do about 19 laps on these mediums in this first stint. I'm going to be expecting the odd undercut from the likes of Behrman, Tsunoda and Alonso if they're keeping up with us so well. However, we are now in the fights with Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton for the podium places, whilst in the meantime the front runners have just walked away in this. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. Could we maybe try and do something different in our strategy, look at the hard compounds to try and drag us back into play? But it looks like Hamilton is on that one stop. Not sure about Piastri. I'd expect it's a 2, everyone's starting on softs. Also most likely on a 2. As we are now really up with the cars at our speed. When I was doing practice laps earlier, I was setting about half a tenth off of pole, as we've just sent the move there on Oscar Piastri, now out of DRS of Lewis Hamilton. That's going to definitely leave us vulnerable for the time being, as we will do all we can to creep back into that 1 second. It's going to be difficult. These mediums have been given a whole lot of dirty air so far. You can even see the tyre wear not looking too pretty. That's now heavy on brakes through the left, trying to get throttle on the exit, unable to get within a second of the hard runner on Hamilton. Whilst the likes of Charles Leclerc on the softs, I won't be surprised if Lando Norris is on the same compounds as that Ferrari, as Oscar Piastri overtakes us Behrman just behind, getting a bit frisky with Fernando Alonso there, fighting over P6 here. Oscar Piastri covers us off well, as I'm hoping now this McLaren can drag us back into touching distance of Hamilton. Otherwise we could very much become a little fight of our own. As to turn 1, Piastri covers the inside, I'll go to the outside, keep it all on the road, as Oscar saw the gap there, tried squeezing down, it just didn't have that pace to get it done. Hamilton very much pulling away on these hards. Could this be where those tyres have really came to life? I've covered off Piastri to the inside, we'll then try and mangle it round the long way. We clip the wall, that's the second time we found a wall, and lucky not to get damage, we then came off it and hit Oscar Piastri. We're just falling back from Hamilton and Leclerc now, as we really are the front runner in this train, and therefore it's just all coming at us and no time to actually breathe and pull away. So I think what we will have to try and do is fend off down this straight and not get overtaken. That way we will be able to maybe try and pile the threat onto Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc also 10.5 up the road. There's quite a bit of time to find between them, as there's Alonso and Piastri wheel to wheel. Doesn't look like they'll be able to catch us in this straight, meaning we can just go back to what we were doing, look after these tyres a bit more and start to push after the cars ahead of us. However, we know that it's not going to be an easy job whatsoever. Hamilton's looked fairly comfortable on those hards. Leclerc and Norris also had that amazing advantage built out from the start. For us, it's just trying to keep that advantage at a minimum until we fully have the clean air up ahead. We'll use a bit more battery just to ensure we are out of that 1 second come the end of this straight. And now we are safe to assume that it's time to go full push on Hamilton here. He's 1.9 ahead, as the cars behind us both over 1.4 back. So we're kind of just sitting in the middle of 3rd and 5th at the moment in terms of the deltas. But as long as we can keep this all in control, we will be a-okay. Round the left hand to try and get that throttle again. You can just tell we really aren't able to get any form of decent run on the exit. That allows Hamilton to pull away, hence why all our overtakes have had to be done with some DRS and battery assistance down this strip, as we are about to enter the 10th lap. Already a 5th of the way through in this race. There's so much more racing to go. Hopefully it's not going to be too dull, with the strategies also going to be kicking in the next 5 to 10 laps. It'll become a bit manic. However, as long as we can keep our cool, we could try and make that one stop work, drag us back into play by an extra stop over Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. And if so, it could mean we will have to be facing Hamilton. It says 2 stops, medium to hards. I'm going to try and stay committed to this one, or to the current strategy, because I don't think the tyres are doing too bad. They're only a quarter of the way burnt on the rears after, well, half our stint. So I think we can safely make the other half and still be fairly competitive. The team doesn't think so, so they've tried prompting us to pit for lap 15. However, depending on how I feel, I'll just keep pushing until it's at a point where I really think I'll be losing out more than anything. But for the time being, I'm matching Hamilton quite nicely in the first 2 sectors. Final sector, it's a tiny bit of a gain from Hamilton just due to the top speed of that Ferrari compared to the top speed of this Red Bull. At the moment we are fighting for P3. Yuki Tsunoda down in P8 behind the McLaren and the Haas of Piastri and Behrman having a little bit of a swap around in this race. However, on to the 11th lap we go. We'll just really be focusing on bringing these tyres back into the adequate temperature range and not go too aggro. We want to try and extend this stint as much as possible here today. So therefore it gives us the best chance of making the 2 work, maybe even the 1 if we go that far. And you can just see at the moment we're somewhat hanging on with Hamilton. The hards definitely the better tyre than the mediums. So we're just going to have to try and skin and bear this until we are off these tyres. But yet again, the longer we can take them, the better it will be for us. Because it means less agony in the other stints. If we call a compromise now, I'm better off going straight to the hards and then maybe look at the softs for the final 10 laps. In this race, do a good 30 lap stint on those hard compounder tyres, but be in the clean air for most part, go for a mega undercut on the likes of Hamilton. Or we just keep doing what we're doing because we are matching the Ferrari's pace, both Leclerc and Hamilton, so I don't think we are doing much wrong at the moment as we enter lap 12. That was a 38.6 that time around, just showing how much slower we were than our personal best, which was our first lap officially in some clean air. We then caught the likes of Hamilton, Alonso and Piastri come the end of it.
By 5/10 a lap. Okay, so
but
gap to the
now,
car ahead,
I think, yeah, this is just the time where we sit and play that waiting game. We'll push these curves a bit more, try all we can to get closer and closer to Lewis Hamilton, whilst also not trying to burn up those tyres as much. You can just tell with the way this race is going, it will be a race between me and Hamilton. I don't really think Lando Norris will get involved, as there's a yellow flag out on track for, I believe, Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls. Now caught up by, I think that's Gabriel Bortoletto. Not Bortoletto, Nico Hulkenberg maybe, one or the other. However, that's the first mistake of the evening, as Yuki Tsunoda now getting the job done on Oliver Behrman in the Haas. Could they try and hunt down Oscar Piastri in this race? As we are still very much doing all we can to stay with Lewis Hamilton here in Las Vegas. The track really just not gelling with us, to say the least. Meaning we are going to have to do everything we can to go out of the ordinary to try and compete with this Ferrari, because we're just stuck in this little rhythm of going around P3, P4. As through the left we go, try and get on that throttle once again, then through the right hander, keeping it all nice and simple, not anything too complicated. Just sounds like I'm repeating the same points over and over, just since we are unable to catch Hamilton. But over the last 2 or 3 laps, if you haven't noticed, Leclerc's delta is starting to plummet against us, as we are going to deploy a bit extra battery down this strip, just so then we can gain a bit more on Hamilton and really start to pile the pressure on. We know our pit stop's coming soon. We need to be as close as possible for that stop. As into the pits comes Charles Leclerc from P2. Lando Norris is still your race leader. He's led ever since the lights out, and that McLaren only 12.9 ahead of us. That gap again closing in. I'm just hoping Charles Leclerc does get caught up in some form of traffic. They come out just ahead of Oscar Piastri, however. This race really has to now be me versus Hamilton. I can't afford Charles Leclerc catching us before we pit, even though it does seem extremely likely our pace matching the one of the Ferrari ahead. And now we are in a very uncomfortable McLaren and Ferrari sandwich with both drivers either side of it, and I'm just a filling in the middle of it all. Whether or not this is the time to now evaluate the hard compound, see whether or not they can do the stint asked. As if we maybe go to lap 20 on these mediums, but the hards on, that's just 10 extra laps on them, 30 laps to the end. As you can just see how much Charles Leclerc has closed in that previous lap. As Lando Norris now into the pit lane, we'll see whether or not Leclerc's managed to get the undercut on the papaya to take the lead in this Las Vegas GP. We go through the final corner, heading up to turn 1 now. Lewis Hamilton is your race leader. I am P2, however we are racing for provisional 3rd and 4th here today. Lando Norris coming out ahead of Charles Leclerc, and within 4 seconds of us. So now the pressure is more on than it has been so far today. We've now got to start trying to be inventive with how we close in on Lewis Hamilton in that Ferrari ahead, because clearly us matching him is not enough, as we will go off through that chicane, lose time to both the Ferrari and the McLaren. As you can see, Lando tucked in behind us now. Could it be worth just giving him the place and then try and see if we can keep up with Lando, as he tries to bring Hamilton closer back to us? That could very much be the strategy, but it will not be ideal whatsoever, as we now deploy battery once again. We've been told pit lap 18. So we don't have too much longer to bear out on these mediums. Then I do think the hard compounds will be the tyres to chuck on as we get our first track limit strike of the race. Hamilton looks like he could be looking at a stop. No, he's instead doing that to break the toe, as if we've got much of one. We're only 1.4 off the Ferrari, as they start to seem like they are struggling on those hards, and we are chipping at them now. I think it's with the additional pressure of Lando Norris being tucked up right behind us in that papaya car, as now we are about to get within that 1 second of Lewis Hamilton for DRS, as this could be the opportunity to put a car between us and the McLaren and maybe run away with the remaining time in our stints. I think we were just going for a big phase of tyre deg, and now very much back in our own, as you can just tell how competitive we are looking at the moment in this Red Bull. We just have to try and hold off Piastri and then go for a move on Hamilton with DRS assistance. We instead clip that wall. Big shunt for us, as that's us even out of DRS range of the McLaren and even further back from Hamilton than we were before. So you know what, let's go for it hards on this lap. We're going, or do we not, because we are still quite close to Lando Norris in that McLaren. we're going to in fact stay out one more lap, see if Norris can pull us in to Lewis Hamilton's grasp once again, because we have been setting quite good pace. Just a shame we made that costly error. However, Lando gets so much more traction through the first two corners, it's almost uncompetable in this race, as he's now within DRS of Hamilton. We're just outside that 2-second mark. Once again, Hamilton struggling in that Ferrari. We're struggling even more in this Red Bull. I think we'll be safe if we pit this lap though, because it's only one lap earlier than our expected window. So I personally would not be dishonest and say that was a horrendous stint. It was quite a miracle stint, because we're fighting in amongst the podium. But could have been just a bit better if we didn't make that mistake last time round and lose the place to Norris. We could have ended up getting past Hamilton. As you can see, Norris now overtaking that Ferrari with ease. So yeah, we are just back to square one.
The McLaren drivers just moved into first place.
As you know what, I'm going for the soft in this stint, go for our expected tyre choice to try and work that deficit back on Leclerc and Norris. It was going to be hard to try and go one stop to the end, but no, we're going for the two. We know that we need to make ground back, because we've lost so much in that undercut. Russell going around the outside of turn 1 now. We are leaving the pit lane in the Red Bull in P6. We'll hopefully get past George Russell almost instantly here, because we're on the softs, they're on the mediums. I don't think we need to push with battery whatsoever in this race as well. It's really all just came out in one piece. We'll go for a lunge just because I broke a bit late, and that's contact with George Russell. Admittedly, that is all our fault, as we've cut there. I've turned him too early. You can just tell I'm already in that mood to try and push all we can.
If you continue to cut corners, the stewards are going to give you a penalty.
As yeah, I do think we are on our last track limit strike, so we will have to be very well behaved in this race. Otherwise there'll be a track limits penalty, which I can guarantee you I would not want, and Red Bull would not want. But we are within 4 seconds of Oscar Piastri. If we can try and bring that gap back down to Leclerc to about 10 seconds, I think we'd have done a darn good job at what we were asked. And then it'll just be a race on pure merit to the line from there. As it's a purple middle, which I've just noticed. Will it be a purple final as well? It won't. But that's a good sign, saying we do have some pace. George Russell has evacuated to the pit lane. Whether Oscar Piastri will come in next time round, we will find out. It would be ideal if the papaya did, then we don't get held up too much by the McLaren team. But then they could do that to protect Lando Norris as well. It's a purple first sector, it's at 27.5. This is very racy in the Red Bull now. We're cutting the gap down to Charles Leclerc, and you can already see we are going to be in DRS range of Oscar Piastri as we work onto that Las Vegas strip. So we'll be all to play for P4 on lap 19 here, as we're also doing a great job at undercutting Lewis Hamilton on those hards, getting that P3, and then just being able to focus up and working on what we have ahead of us, which will be Charles Leclerc in a matter of moments time. DRS wide open, battery being burned, as we will try and drag Piastri to the inside. Instead go to the outside, opt the long way round against the McLaren. That is P4 in this race. May the hunt begin for Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris as we are rounding that final corner now to set the fastest lap of the race. Along with it, it's a 35.063 for us, as that is very much good stuff. Thank you, Mark, for that friendly boost of morale, as Hamilton 13 seconds ahead of us. We are definitely going to be undercutting the Ferrari in this race, so it should be P3. It's a shame we didn't get the job done on the track, but we will do it through the strategy. But could Hamilton come back at us in this race? Could he be going for that one stop, starting on the hards, going to the mediums till the end? It's something to look at, as I've got to try and make these tyres to lap 32 in order to take the mediums to the end and be on that ideal strategy. And therefore I'll be on the same strategy with the leaders. It'll just be whether or not I can make anything work against them, as the gap between us and Charles Leclerc is diminishing, and so is that gap between us and Hamilton. That is just falling apart like paper going through a shredder. As we go through the chicane again, don't clip that wall, otherwise that would have been our race over on lap 20. As we work our way up to the start finish line, will this be an even quicker lap than last time? It won't, but it's a 35.7, showing we do have some pace in this Red Bull. But that last lap was absolute push all out, and now this is just trying to stick with the Ferraris as much as possible, especially Charles Leclerc, who's on those mediums and we're on the soft, so our tyres will be wearing out much quicker than that Ferrari's. Gap to car in front 10.6, says our engineer. But now doing what we can to close in to the likes of Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. More than anything, we will be closing that gap to Lewis in the run for third. But that Ferrari is going to be left with an insanely long stint, so don't get me wrong, Hamilton is going to be quite expecting the loss in places. Could we maybe even shorten this, go to when Hamilton pits, then go to the hards and try and race them to the end that way? Put a bit extra pressure on the cars ahead. Heading up to turn 1 again, the gap between us and Leclerc just gone under 11 seconds. It's not gaining, well, not dropping as quick as it was initially.
You're catching the car ahead by a couple
However,
of
that
seconds
is
a
just
lap
due
now.
to
Really good.
these softs getting completely worn to the bone from such an early point. Almost into that wall, and could have been our race
You're
ended
increasing
as
the gap
well.
to the car behind by
We'll
a
luckily
few
be able
seconds
to
per
keep
lap.
that
Keep it up.
momentum going. As yeah, we are just going to be trying our best to set consistent sector times to then try and rival Charles Leclerc. I think our race is with him more than anyone else. If we went to the hards, maybe it could have been with Lando Norris, but I didn't think the hards would have made it in this race. Could also look at maybe doing a 22 lap stint on the hards, guide it home that way more than anything else.
Okay, gap to the
As
car
Hamilton
ahead,
now 7.5 ahead,
seconds.
we are completely closing in. Our eyes set on P3 in this race, and it's just going to be putting a larger and larger gap between us and that Ferrari, so more comfort for us in the long run. I do think Hamilton may have very much pulled a blind in this race, however, because the likes of Oscar Piastri and Alonso also going quite long on those mediums. They'll most likely be going to those hard compounded tyres, as I've now just dropped that gap between us and Leclerc to within 10 seconds. The gap falling more as we continue to talk, as Hamilton now within 6 seconds, most likely after turn 3 here. We go through the right hand to get back on the throttle, and now it's 6 seconds between us and Hamilton, as the hunt is very much on now. Will we catch Hamilton before he pits, or will he pit when we get to him? It'll be interesting to see, as now I do think our race is starting to come alive a bit. Of course, we started from last, and now we are fighting up there with the top dogs of Leclerc, Norris and Hamilton. They of course had an amazing start, meaning while I was caught in all that traffic, they were able to pull out a 12-second deficit to the likes of me and Hamilton. I've dropped that to 10 on Leclerc. On Norris it's about 15, unfortunately. So we have got some work to do against that papaya car. Whereas Hamilton goes on to lap 24. And I will continue to drop that gap down. It's about to be 5 seconds between us. It in fact is now. And between us and Leclerc, that is looking like it could drop under 9 come the end of our stint. Oscar Piastri into the pits. He's going to the hards. Yes, he in fact is. Yuki Tsunoda also out on track on the mediums. Crazy to think we had a little tussle with our teammate in the opening few laps, and now we are almost a pit stop clear of them. In this race, we're about to drop that gap between us and Hamilton to 4 seconds as well. It's completely being torn apart in this race for that Ferrari. But I do think that one stop is going to be playing a blinder on us all here today, because Hamilton until about mid-30s will have the better tyres than the likes of us and Leclerc. My gap to Leclerc is now increasing as well. It's starting to die out on these softs much quicker than I thought they would have died on. As now our job is just to try and keep with this 10-second margin, then undercut Leclerc, maybe with the hards, and then try and race them that way more than anything else. As up to turn 1 we will go once again for the 25th lap of 50 here today.
Check your MFD for details.
We are piling it on, as we've been told. Maybe pit lap 30 by our engineer.
Understood, copy that.
Does look like the hards will be coming into play, because it'll mean 20 laps on the mediums. We were struggling to even reach lap 18 on them without making costly errors, so we will just continue to pace ourselves and then see what we have to end up doing to reach the end when we get there. Don't want to be thinking about it too much in this race. Well, we've got Hamilton within 3 seconds of us. I think it's better we just get that move done on Lewis and then think about what we need to do against Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. But I really do think those two are out of reach here today. As I may end up trying to follow Hamilton with the hards. When he goes to the mediums, I'll go to the hards, and then try and race him with the better tyres at the end, and both of us go for the undercut on Leclerc and Lando, because the amount I've gained on that lap to Leclerc is 0 to Hamilton, about 1.2 seconds. So yeah, lap 26 of 50, we could be in DRS range of Hamilton come the end of this lap. If so, do we look at those hard compounder tyres, or do whatever Hamilton doesn't do to try and get ahead of him for when he goes to the mediums? We are now really starting to think the long way round this race, rather than trying to go to our optimal lap. Go to the slower tyres, which have proven to have pace compared to the mediums so far this race, proven by Hamilton in our first stint. As I'm not gaining on Leclerc, more than anything I'm falling back on the Ferrari now. So is it time to try and roll the dice, do something different, something no one was thinking of in this race? As I'm going to say, box this lap, see if Hamilton comes in. If he does, stay out. If he doesn't, go with the strategy call. Into the chicane now. We are very much within that second of the Ferrari. We are looking insanely racy. He's staying out. We will come in for our second and final stop here today. Going to the end, big snap of oversteer on the brakes, got a bit of rear locking. However, it's undercut time. Let's make this count. The hards coming on, out we go. Will we be ahead of Fernando Alonso? I think we must be ahead of him for this to work, otherwise we may have shot ourselves in the foot a bit. He's going around the first corner now. We will be racing him on the exit. We'll stay in, but Alonso just ahead. We are not going to get DRS on the Aston Martin, so we're going to have to try and use our battery pack. He'll go to the inside, we'll go to the outside. These tyres not fully warmed up yet, so don't expect the move. We will make it stick, however, and that is P4. It's time to hunt down Leclerc, Norris and even Hamilton in this race on these hards. As I'm hoping these tyres are not as shambolic as it was on Ferraris. They were quite strong on them. It does look like we may be struggling a bit to find the pace. They'll of course have to get up to temperatures first, and that is where Hamilton does end up going into favour with the tyre choice, as the front right already up to 8% after that little kiss with the wall. Already been quite flirtatious in this race. But we have to remember, these are taking us to the end. Hamilton into the pits now. It's absolute push time. Will we beat the Ferrari out, or will we be stuck behind them for a while longer? As of course, if you think about it in a certain way, Hamilton's trying to undercut the race leaders as well. So up towards turn 1 we go. Hamilton on the inside, of course, with the pit exit. The Ferrari's going to come out behind Fernando Alonso, or will he be ahead? He will be wheel to wheel with that Aston Martin, but we've cleared our challenge of Lewis Hamilton. We've just got to try and defend and close in on Norris and Leclerc. A pit stop here is about 18 seconds, so that gap's going to have to plummet for us to have any form of decent chance at rivaling one or both of them. However, we should almost definitely have the best tyres at the end of this race. These hards aren't a quick wearing compound, you can already see. We are matching Hamilton on their out lap, and we've only got one lap of temps on these hards. So into the left-hander we go. We also need to remember we've got one track limit strike left. Then that may be us with a penalty. So just got to try and bide our time against Lewis Hamilton as we work our way down to the chicane. heading up towards first corner. That gap is closing between us, Norris and Leclerc. These hards very much looking quite racy, a 36.3 that time round. Bear in mind, these hards aren't going to be setting the same pace as the softs were in their opening few laps. More than anything, we'll be matching the medium compound tyres in terms of pace. So to be bearing with Hamilton sitting at 1.8 between us, we are doing quite a good run so far. Tyre percentage going up again with that contact with the wall. We are quite lucky not to have found the end of the race. We've had so many encounters with the walls here in the streets of Las Vegas, but we're just managing to keep it all safe.
Battery charge is high. Let's use that overtake button a bit more.
Go. It's just matter of fact, when does Hamilton catch? Because I'm not going to be surprised if he does. On those fresh mediums compared to our fresh hards, the mediums usually that quicker compound in the race. As we jump over that sausage curb, we're still closing in on Charles Leclerc. That gap within 23 seconds almost. And in terms of Lando Norris, it's dropped to 29, despite when we pitted it was 31 between us. So we are running quite nicely as we enter the 30th lap of the race. 21 left, and so much time for something to change between us and the front runners. I do think we could get the undercut to work on Charles Leclerc. Whether or not we can do the same with Lando Norris, we will find out when he pits. As we knew, we were pitting to do something different, and that something different is running half the race on the hards. I'll be honest, I think we should have tried sticking out on those mediums. Then we'd be with Hamilton and maybe a bit further ahead than where we currently are sitting. But the roll of the dice for that two-stop, I knew what I was signing up for. But I didn't think those softs were going to wear out so quickly and becoming ineffective against the mediums after about 6 odd laps. That's why we ended up hitting for the hards, because we had to be quicker than Leclerc and Norris to bring ourselves in. And when we were only matching them at bare minimum, we knew that that was not where it was going in this race. We were only going to be going backwards rather than forwards with the two-stop going to our scheduled pit time. So we had to stay out. Not stay out, we had to pit and then roll the dice with the hards to the end. You can just tell though that I'm not leaving it all nice and simple. We are cutting away quite quickly at Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. It'd be great if we can beat Lando, but I don't think it's a necessity in this race, because of course starting last, not the easiest of runs to the top. But 20.3 seconds between us and Leclerc, that is certainly where our fight lies. As onto the strip for the 31st time, there's no issues for tyre wear. I would have been concerned if there was after only 6 laps on these hards. For Andrea Antonelli, currently P19, Lando Norris about to be up with a lapped car. But Leclerc into the pits. It's go time for us now. We need ideally about 18 seconds to make an undercut. It's 20 seconds, so we know that Leclerc should be starting the next lap ahead. as we work our way up to the first corner. Where's Leclerc going to be coming out compared to us? He's also on a set of hards, so the Ferraris don't think the mediums were the tyres to go on whatsoever. And now Leclerc on the fresher hard compounder tyres. So we just have to try and beat him on the older rubber, which definitely is not going to be ideal. However, we've seen that even though we've had a tyre deficit, we can be quicker than another driver, shown with Lewis Hamilton at this moment, because those mediums really aren't looking too racy whatsoever. And therefore that does somewhat beg the question for me with Hamilton, is he on that 2-stop? Because his teammates opted for the hards in this race. Hamilton could go to the softs in the final 10 or so laps. And if so, that will mean his race practically becomes ineffective, as Lando Norris into the pit lane as well. We aren't going to catch the Papaya or the Scuderia, but we will guarantee 3rd place in this race on the basis Hamilton does not catch us. I do think George Russell is somewhat looking racy as well in that Mercedes, but they're 9 seconds down the road, so our race really is with Leclerc and Norris, who's going to be split by about 3 seconds as well. Big issue though, Norris on the mediums. He's going to be quick and almost certain to run away with this race to the end. So yeah, it's us versus Charles Leclerc. We're matching the Ferrari at the moment. As we are just slowly gaining on the Ferrari. I don't think we'll catch. I'll be brutally honest, if we catch, that will be superb. But the pace we're sitting at is just enough to hold on to that 3rd place against Hamilton, and just enough to stay within a puncture range of Leclerc and Norris, and also safety car pit stop to bring us in with Leclerc. Up to the first corner, we are going to go here today for the 34th lap of this race. We found a good 4 attempts on Charles Leclerc that time round. We found no gain on Lando Norris. Could the race be on in Las Vegas? The gap still dropping between me and Charles, just showing these hards very much in their operating window, unlike that Ferrari's. Then for Norris, he's gaining ever so slightly. So when those tyres burn out, could we become the quickest man on the track? We of course have fastest lap at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda into the pit lane. Could they maybe try and take that fastest lap point away from us? As now just continuing what we've been doing all race, and that is going absolute push for the front. As it's really just now waiting for the time to be right, but I do think it could be right now, since that gap again not fading between me and Leclerc, also not growing, whereas between me and Norris it definitely is doing one of them. However, it does like the odd swap, because we've just gained a good chunk down this strip, probably due to that excess burning battery, doing all we can to close up to Charles Leclerc, bring us into reaching distance of the Ferrari, as we're now within 2 seconds of P2. We are definitely going to start trying to give it our all now, as there's a DRS zone in that final sector we will be looking at using to our absolute advantage here through the right-hander back on throttle, as we'll just sit at 2 seconds. I think that's going to be how our race has to be run, as there's the yellow flag. I think that's Yuki Tsunoda who is out of the race. Are we going to get a safety car for it? If so, I'm going to the mediums and taking him to the end. But it does not look like we will be getting one. Could it be a puncture for the Red Bull? Or are they going off in that first final corner? Yes, they in fact are. That is a retirement from this race for Yuki Tsunoda. 2.5 seconds between us and Charles Leclerc, as we have just gone into a wall. I looked at a message, and yeah, therefore I'm going to take my first cheeky flashback of this race. I'm only allowing myself one, because yeah, I'm an idiot. Why not? But yeah, up to that first corner now. We're going to deplete our battery, trying to hold on with Charles Leclerc at that 2.4 second breach. Of course, those hards now looking a wee bit better, where we aren't deploying as much battery over the course of a lap. It's a lot more raw pace in which we are matching them by than the artificial pace of battery deployment. Lap 36 begins. We are about to enter the final 10 laps of this race, so do not go anywhere. For those who have tuned in since the start, you of course know it's been a fairly straightforward run ever since the first corner. We got up into the top 10 on the second lap and have just been gunning for the top 3 ever since we undercut Hamilton on lap 25. That gave us P3 finally, after making a stop on lap 17 to go to the softs, catch back up to Hamilton, then undercut him with the hards. And we've just been proven that these hards are the better tyre, as we've pulled away from Hamilton more than anything, and then we closed the gap to 3 seconds to Charles Leclerc. We're slowly but surely eating into that Ferrari's advantage, whereas Norris pitted for the mediums and he's just been on a walk on his own ever since the start of this race. Lando Norris has been completely unchallenged. He started from pole, he pulled away by about 2 seconds on the opening lap and has pitted and came out in first every time, apart from when Hamilton took that lead for a brief moment when they were on the hards. However, again, this lap matched Leclerc, lost 2 tenths to Lando Norris. You can just tell that the delta's very much syncing up in the top 3. It's so difficult to close in on the opponents. But then could this be where we pray for that safety car, George Russell in the pit? So we do have a pit stop window on us if we wish to take it. However, is it going to be enough to gain 30 seconds on the likes of Lando Norris? As again, just sitting there with Charles Leclerc, hoping that our time does not run out here in Vegas. Of course, P2 is right there. It's almost like the first stint all over again. Hamilton on the hards, me on the mediums, a bit more worn out of a compound, and just doing our all to stay within 3 seconds. Then at the very end of the stint was when we were finally quicker, which is surprising. So I'm just going to try and deplete that battery just so we can claw back in to Charles Leclerc's 2.5 seconds, because we did make a fairly big mistake there. Jump through that chicane and it's a 3-second track limit penalty. We've got our last strike. Now it's a race for P4, as I'll be honest,
Okay,
Hamilton
we've given a time
is now
penalty.
going
It
to
will go
try
against our
and
finishing time
catch
at
back
the end of
up.
the
I
race.
don't
Get
think
your
we'll
head
be
down
able
and let's get it done.
to gain P2 on Leclerc and then pull out 3 seconds on him. That's a shame. But that is just the way the cookie crumbles. In motor racing
We're
sometimes
increasing our gap on the car
it took us
behind by around a
38
second a lap.
laps to get, well, 37 laps to get our final infringement. Just shows we pushed a bit too hard in the earlier doors. We did accumulate 2 warnings in about 2 laps, just due to reckless racing and not really being too careful about where we were on the track. So now we just have to focus up on finishing where we are. Could it be worth looking at the softs in the final 10 laps, try and hunt down Hamilton and then secure it that way? Or do we look at just playing it long and guiding this this Red Bull car to the end in this McLaren and Ferrari sandwich, which we currently lie in? As Oscar Piastri very much has been out of this race for the duration, currently down in P5. Lando Norris leading since the start, and me from last to third, and it does look like we will safely be bringing home that P3 by a good 2 seconds over Hamilton due to our 3-second track limit penalty, rather than the 5 it would have been if we crossed the line without any penalties. And yet again, not gaining on Charles Leclerc. This is really when the race becomes a test more than anything. Tests our patience with our driving ability.
Gap ahead,
As the gap ahead,
2.6
2.6 seconds. Do we just try and push to that very end? Because we know we could be in clean air of Piastri if we were to pit now as such. As you can see, we've got new mediums available. The softs are used, so if we were to pit again, the softs are very much not an option. However, we've been on these tyres for 14 laps and they've only just hit 25% on the rear right. I think we are very much safe to go to the end on these hards and just pray that no tyres go out on us today. So that is where my mind currently sits. It's frustrating with 3 seconds of track limits as well. But we're just going to have to work with what we've been given here in Qatar. Not Qatar, Las Vegas. Why am I thinking of Qatar? I don't know why. Maybe that's where the CRL mystery event for Elite Division appeared. It's not even the wildcard event yet. For Legends Division ended up being. Qatar was the race on the Wednesday just gone though for Elite Division. If you want to see how that unravelled, go to my commentary account, Cryptic Commentates, to see that unravel. Heading back onto the Las Vegas Strip, I really don't see too much in this race now. Leclerc pulling away. These hards have very much died on us now. Whatever happens, we are falling back. That's the joys of having those 6 laps older tyres. And now I can go back to that mistake on lap 16, clip the wall as we entered the strip, let Norris by with ease. We could have been at least 2 seconds further ahead as a repercussion. Instead, 2 seconds further behind, and there we are. Now, gap between us and Hamilton has dropped quite a bit again. It's now 6 seconds between us and the Ferrari, just showing those mediums very much on their last legs, whereas these hards have got more life on than the Ferraris. Whereas in terms of the Ferrari ahead, they are just pulling away now. I've really lost hope ever since that 3-second penalty came around. We've just been focusing on bringing home the P3, which we are doing a stellar good job in doing so. But so much of this race have just been us in a land of our own. As there really is not much between us out on track. If we were in, let's say, the Alpine of Gasly would actually be involved in some racing, which would have been great. However, the Red Bull just cruised straight through them all. And here we are, lap 42 now. 4 seconds off of Leclerc, 6 seconds off of Hamilton, and 3 seconds that we have to try and cover off against that Ferrari by. Just got to survive. Now between here and the end we've used our one flashback. I gave myself because I was a donut and looked at my phone. Really does just show the consistency of my driving. Took us 37 laps to get 3 track limit straights, and then in the 42 that have been completed, only one mistake that needed a flashback. That was going into the wall and practically ending our race. As for some reason we are slowly closing in on Charles Leclerc. About 2.5 tenths went out on that Ferrari in the previous lap. I didn't think these hards had anything left in them, but it looks like that some things may be still in grasp.
Okay, gap to the car in front, 4.0.
As it's just going to be me trying all I can to guarantee Hamilton doesn't close in, which I've practically done. Hamilton now beyond 7 seconds back, and Charles Leclerc 4 seconds ahead. So yeah, it is just more than anything taking this Red Bull home to the fans on the podium. It's a shame though we never actually raced Norris and Leclerc on pure merit, but at least I can turn around and say on lap 44 here we are very safe with our finishing position. We've just managed our pace all the way throughout. We've looked after the tyres when need be, especially on those mediums, to reach our target lap after being unloaded by so much dirty air. And then on those softs we literally used them just to wear them out, so then we could catch Hamilton and Leclerc. Then we saw the hards were an option, so we do whatever Hamilton doesn't do and undercut that Ferrari. Then these hards have been doing just fine all race long, even though we are falling back on Norris and Leclerc. They are going to be the tyres that take us to the end here in Las Vegas, as the grip still feels good enough to run it to the end. And we aren't really bothered about the leaders. We knew ever since that 3 seconds were handed to us, it was game over. But now, battery on that back straight with 5 seconds off of Leclerc. Now 7.5 ahead of Hamilton. Well, Russell on the softs. Could the Mercedes go for your fastest lap point here today, as we've gone darting across that chicane? A big lapse of driving ability kept it all out the wall, and somehow still somewhat matched Hamilton. Well, lost a good second to Hamilton there. Can't have too many of these mistakes in this race, otherwise we will definitely be leaving it without a podium to our name. Of course, Yuki Tsunoda DNF'd immediately after their stop around lap 28. And we've just been the lone Red Bull ever since. And we got past our teammate after about 3 laps of running as well, just showing how much better we have been throughout the duration of this race. As yeah, I'll be honest, this has been borderline perfection. Of course, those big lapses of concentration, that 3-second penalty accumulated by 2 track limit strikes between lap 15 and 18.
Okay, gap to the car ahead.
Just showing we really weren't with it, but ever since we've drove a good race to keep us in touching distance with Leclerc and Norris as much as we could. We knew ever since the start procedure where they pulled out a 10-second gap in about 3 laps, it was safe to assume it's game over. So, with 5 laps to go now, it's going to be Lando Norris who will win almost certainly, unless he spins or DNFs now. Same said with Charles Leclerc with P2, but P3 is still question marks. We of course made a big mistake on lap 43, which saw Hamilton close in. We've not really been pulling away since. So, could this be the time the mediums come back at us? We saw the mediums come back at Hamilton on the hards in the first stint. Will we see the mediums come back at us in the second? As there's a yellow flag, it's Oscar Piastri who is going quite slowly. Are they in the box? No, they aren't. They are going to retire from this race in the first corner. Is that late enough for a safety car? Maybe. We'll find out if we get one. However, it does not seem like that will be the case today. Hamilton's gained half a second on this lap so far. So, our efforts could be going to waste if we continue to drop by half a second a lap. There's enough time for Hamilton to still close in. It's only 3 seconds. Half a second a lap would mean 6 laps. But 7 tenths to 8 tenths a lap should get the job done for the Ferrari driver. George Russell currently in P5 on the softs, unable to challenge my 35.0, which was set around lap 19. Yellow flags in turn 1 for Oscar Piastri, who's off there.
Green flag.
But yeah, lap 47 of 50 now, and time has very much faded out. We are almost going to be a pit stop behind Lando Norris. when he crosses the line to take the win. Just showing that even though we've had that strategy call to try and drag us back in, we weren't able to keep up with that McLaren on 7 lap older hards than they have the mediums. As we found a wall there, in fact, a bit of debris going off the car as well. Another lapse of concentration, and that's going to be another drop from Hamilton. He's now within 6 seconds. He's got 2.5 to find on us between now and the end. The damage is not going to be useful whatsoever. Could Hamilton close in with us? As we will be gifted with a bit more top speed as a result. However, we will be losing out in the corners with that wing damage, because there'll be less downforce on this car for a fairly low downforce circuit in general. As there's 3 laps left of racing here in Vegas. Through the right hander we go, trying to keep it all pushing. Heavy on brakes, through the left, tapping the apexes as we go around. But if you guys have enjoyed, do comment about this. Tell me to do more, because I'll be more than happy to do so if I'm free on a Friday. Because yeah, usually Fridays when I ain't in college and at work, I've got nothing to do, so this is something nice and different. Gives you all something to watch as well. As yeah, 2 laps left here in Vegas. We aren't dropping back from Hamilton, we're just matching the Ferrari's pace. As the gap between us and Norris, 17.4 up front, then 10.8 between us and Charles Leclerc, so practically where it was after we finally found ourselves up in P4. So yeah, nice full circle moment. Says we couldn't catch Charles Leclerc, and we definitely couldn't match Lando Norris whatsoever.
Let's use overtake and burn off some of this energy.
As yeah,
Okay, keep
we're just taking this race home now
11.4 seconds.
in style. Lando Norris about to start their 50th and final tour of this Las Vegas Strip City Street Circuit. And Leclerc also starting it. I'm working my way up to the final corner to start my final lap as well. As we really have not been challenged whatsoever ever since we got past the likes of Alonso and Piastri for P4. It's just been smooth sailing. We then of course undercut Lewis Hamilton to the hards. That gave us P3. We've been able to match and pull away from that Ferrari, and it's really just been steady going ever since, just trying to bring it home on these hard compounded tyres. You can just look at that tyre wear is 48% on that rear right. The front's doing a-okay, starting to get a bit reluctant to turn in, however. As this has been a fun hour and a half of racing. As it will be Lando Norris who enters the chicane at the end of this straight to now work their way up towards the start finish line to say they have won in Las Vegas. It's Lando Norris who wins the Las Vegas Grand Prix, with Charles Leclerc coming up in P2, and it will be me rounding the final corner just 5 seconds ahead of Hamilton with 3 seconds, meaning I'll take P3 by just 2 seconds over the Brit. It's a podium for us.
Yeah, not bad. That's yeah, good result for the whole team.
Here's the checkered flag. The fans rise to their feet. It's Lando Norris for victory.
They led from lights out to the flag at the end.
As
their race victory was never in doubt.
Lando Norris, you can tell I'm fairly out of breath
It's time
for
for our
all that waffling
celebrations. And as ever in
for
Formula
90
One,
minutes straight.
He is the magic number. He
But
holds the trophy
if you did
aloft
enjoy,
where it should
do
be.
subscribe,
A richly
do follow.
deserved win today for Lando Norris.
Do even like and send this out to your friends. But without further ado, the final result. Here is Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen versus Hamilton, George Russell, Fernando Alonso in 6th, Pierre Gasly and Colapinto coming home 7th and 8th. In the Alpines is Gasly 7th, Colapinto 8th, Sainz in 9th, Behrman 10th, Andrea Kimi Antonelli 11th, Albon 12th, Liam Lawson 13th, Nico Hulkenberg in 14th, Ocon 15th, Bortoletto 16th, Stroll 17th, Hadjar in last with Oscar Piastri and Yuki Tsunoda both failing to finish. However guys, I hope you've been enjoying this. I'll probably find you later on Cryptic Commentates, but for now, that's been me. Goodbye.